10 years of marriage deserved better than this. I sat at table 12 in Meridian's finest steakhouse, watching my wife Mira check her reflection in her phone screen for the third time in 5 minutes. She'd ordered the salmon but hadn't touched it. I'd gone with the ribeye, medium rare, and it was getting cold while I waited for whatever was coming next. "Cole, I'm sorry, but I need to take this call." Mira's fingers were already moving across her phone screen. "Work emergency. 2 minutes. I promise." She touched my hand, apologetic smile, the same smile she'd used when she started working late 3 months ago, when she joined that new gym, when she needed space to think about our future. "Take your time," I said. "I'll be here." Mira stood and smoothed her black dress, the one I'd bought her for Christmas. She walked toward the back of the restaurant, past the restrooms, toward the bar area. I watched her reflection in the mirror behind the wine display. That's when I saw him. Gray suit, expensive watch, perfectly styled hair that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. He was waiting by the brass rail, nursing what looked like top-shelf whiskey. When Mira approached, he didn't look surprised. He looked like he'd been expecting her. She didn't hesitate. His hand found her waist. Her mouth found his. I set down my wine glass and counted to 10. Then I counted to 20. The kiss lasted longer than our last 3 anniversary kisses combined, 14 steps from my table to the bar. I counted each one as I walked over, pulled out the stool beside them, and sat down. "Waiter," I called to the bartender, loud enough for half the restaurant to hear. "Put their drinks on my tab." The man's glass stopped halfway to his lips. Mira's face went through a fascinating cycle of emotions. Confusion first, then recognition, then pure terror. "It's the least I can do for my wife's divorce attorney," I continued, extending my hand to the man. "Cole Archer, pleased to finally meet you, Mr. Vellick." Damon Vellick, family law specialist, 15 years of practice. Mira had retained him 6 months ago. I'd found the credit card charge buried in her statement. Initial consultation fee, first of many meetings. The billing records I'd obtained through a contact at his firm showed 47 consultations since then. Average duration, 3 hours each. His paralegal had confirmed that actual legal work for a straightforward divorce would require maybe 5 consultations total. The rest was off the books. "How did you," Mira started, "know about your meetings? Hotel charges on the same dates as your legal consultations. Adjacent line items on that credit card you thought I didn't know about. You paid for the rooms. He probably wrote them off as client development expenses." Damon finally found his voice. "Mr. Archer, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding. You've been building my wife's divorce case while building something else entirely. Asset concealment strategies, custody angles, affair evidence against me that doesn't exist, all while maintaining an intimate relationship with your client." The bartender appeared with the check. I signed it and added a 20% tip. "Consider this a retainer for my own attorney," I said. "She's meeting me here in 10 minutes. As if on cue, Helena Vero walked through the front entrance. My actual divorce attorney, former prosecutor, board certified in family law. She spotted our little gathering at the bar and headed straight for my original table, where she opened her briefcase and began arranging documents. "You hired Helena Vero?" Damon's face had gone pale. Everyone in family law knew Helena's reputation. 3 days ago, right after I filed the ethics complaint with the state bar, relationship with a client during active representation, conflict of interest, fraud upon the court, career-ending violations, from what I understand. Mira grabbed my arm. "Cole, please, we can talk about this privately. Like you talked to me privately before you decided to end our marriage? Before you started planning how to take half my assets while screwing your lawyer?" I gently removed her hand. "I don't think so." I stood and straightened my tie. "Enjoy your drinks. And Mira, happy anniversary." The next morning brought consequences. I was debugging server configurations at Meridian Tech Solutions when my boss, Jim Sloan, appeared at my cubicle. Jim was usually the laid-back type, but today he looked uncomfortable. "Cole, we need to talk. Conference room 2. I saved my work and followed him down the hall. Jim closed the door and gestured for me to sit. "I got a call this morning," he began. "About you." "From who?" "Someone claiming to be concerned about your mental state. Said you've been unstable lately, aggressive, that there might be domestic issues affecting your work performance." I leaned back in my chair. "Let me guess. Anonymous tip?" "The caller identified herself as a close friend of your wife. Said she was worried about everyone's safety." Lex Firth. Had to be. Mira's best friend since college. Always around, always supportive, always ready with a shoulder to cry on and advice about how terrible husbands could be. "Jim, my wife is having an affair with her divorce attorney. Last night I confronted them publicly. This morning her friends are trying to make me look unstable. You see the pattern here?" Jim rubbed his forehead. "I figured it was something like that. But Cole, I have to ask, are you okay? Really okay? I'm getting divorced. My wife has been planning to take me for everything I'm worth while sleeping with her lawyer, but I'm handling it legally and appropriately. Helen Navarro is representing me." "Helen Navarro? Damn, you're not messing around." "Neither is my wife, apparently." Jim stood up. "Okay, I'll make a note in your file that we discussed this. But Cole, keep your personal life out of the office, and if you need time off to deal with legal stuff, just ask." I spent the rest of the day working and thinking. By 5 o'clock, I needed to hit something that would hit back. Big Mike's boxing gym occupied the ground floor of a converted warehouse on the south side of town. I'd been training there for 3 years, ever since I'd decided that sitting at a computer all day was turning me soft. Mike was ex-military, built like a refrigerator, and had exactly zero tolerance for drama. "You look like hell," he said when I walked in. "Feel worse. Got time for some sparring?" "Always. But you're wound pretty tight today. You sure you want to get in the ring?" "I need to get in the ring." Mike paired me with Danny Torres, a welterweight who usually took it easy on the weekend warriors like me. But word had apparently gotten around about my situation. "Heard your wife's got herself a fancy lawyer," Danny said as we touched gloves. "Real fancy from what I hear." I didn't respond. The bell rang. Danny came out aggressive, testing me with quick jabs. I slipped most of them and worked his body. Normal sparring. Then he started talking. "Must be nice, having a lawyer who makes house calls, real personal service." I caught him with a right cross that snapped his head back. The gym got quiet. "You got something to say to me, Danny?" He circled, grinning. "Just saying some lawyers really go the extra mile for their clients, above and beyond, you know." I stepped inside his next jab and drove an uppercut into his solar plexus. Danny folded and went down hard. The referee counted him out while he struggled to breathe. The gym erupted in cheers and catcalls. Big Mike climbed through the ropes and raised my glove. "That's how you handle trash talk," he announced. "Anyone else got opinions about Cole's personal life?" The gym went back to normal business. Danny eventually got his wind back and shook my hand. "No hard feelings," he said. "But damn, man, where'd that come from?" 10 years of marriage, I replied. I was toweling off when my phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Meet me at Murphy's Tavern. Come alone. David Firth, Lex's husband, real estate agent. Nice guy, but usually invisible when his wife was around. I'd always wondered what he thought about Lex's intense involvement in other people's marriages. Apparently, I was about to find out. Murphy's Tavern was the kind of place where you could drink in peace and nobody asked questions. Dark wood, dim lighting, and a bartender who minded his own business. David was already there when I arrived, nursing a beer and looking like he hadn't slept. "Thanks for coming," he said as I sat down. I ordered a whiskey. "What's on your mind, David?" He took a long pull from his beer before answering. "Lex has been acting strange lately, more than usual, always on her phone, always whispering, always involved in your marriage drama. She's Mira's best friend. That's what best friends do. Not like this. Cole, she knows things about your wife that wives don't usually tell their friends. Details, intimate stuff, financial information." The bartender delivered my whiskey. I sipped it and waited. "Last week, I heard her on the phone with someone. Not Mira. A man. She was talking about you. About ways to make you look unstable. About pushing Mira toward more aggressive legal action." "Did you recognize the voice?" "No. But David, there's something else. Damon Vellick isn't Mira's first affair." I set down my glass. "What do you mean?" 2 years ago, there was a guy named Peterson, marketing consultant. Mira was working late a lot, just like now. Lex was very supportive, very understanding, always encouraging Mira to explore her options. You think Lex was encouraging the affair? I think Lex has been encouraging Mira to cheat on you for years. The question is why? David finished his beer and signaled for another. "There's more. Lex has been researching you. Your job, your finances, your background. She's got files on her computer, screenshots of your social media, your work history, even your gym membership. Why would she care about any of that? I don't know. But Cole, I think my wife hates you, really hates you, and I think she's been working to destroy your marriage for a long time." I finished my whiskey and considered this. Lex had always been around, always helpful, always ready to listen to Mira's complaints about marriage. I'd assumed it was normal female friendship behavior. Maybe I'd assumed wrong. "David, why are you telling me this?" He looked uncomfortable. "Because Lex has been different since this whole thing started. Excited, like she's enjoying it. And because I found something else." He pulled out his phone and showed me a text message thread. The contact was labeled M, but the number wasn't Mira's. "She's been texting someone else named M. Look at the timestamps. They match up with every major development in your situation." I scrolled through the messages. They were cryptic, but disturbing. He took the bait at the restaurant. Good. Now we move to phase 2. Make sure he looks unstable, angry, dangerous. Already handled. Called his boss this morning. The messages went back 3 weeks, before the restaurant confrontation, before I'd discovered the affair. "David, who is the other M?" "I don't know, but whoever it is, they're working together to destroy you." I handed back his phone. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because I love my wife, but I don't like what she's become. And because you don't deserve this, Cole. Whatever you did to make Lex hate you, this is way beyond reasonable." I left Murphy's Tavern with more questions than answers. But one thing was clear, the affair was just the beginning. Someone had been planning my destruction for weeks, maybe months, and I was going to find out who. I spent the weekend hacking, not the dramatic movie version where you break into government databases, the boring real-world version where you exploit weak passwords and social engineering. Mira had always been careless with digital security. She used the same password for everything. Sophie 2015, our daughter's name and birth year. Her email account opened like a flower. What I found made my stomach turn. 3 months of correspondence with Damon Vellick, starting well before their first official consultation. The early emails were professional, discussing divorce strategy and asset protection. But by the second week, the tone had shifted. "I enjoyed our dinner last night. You're handling this very maturely. Thank you for being so understanding about my situation. Cole would never be this supportive. Perhaps we should meet more frequently. These matters require careful attention." The progression was textbook. Emotional support, professional admiration, personal connection, physical relationship. Damon was either a natural predator or he'd done this before. But the emails with Lex were worse. "How's our project coming along?" Lex had written 3 weeks ago. D is very helpful, more than I expected, Mira had replied. Good. Remember, we need C to look like the bad guy here, unstable, controlling, maybe violent. I don't know if I can do that. He's never been violent. You don't have to lie. Just emphasize his anger issues, the boxing, how intimidated you feel. What if he finds out what we're doing? He won't. He's too trusting, too stupid. I printed everything. Monday morning, I called in sick and drove to Helena Vero's office. She practiced out of a converted Victorian mansion downtown, all dark wood and law books. Her secretary showed me into a conference room where Helena was already reviewing documents. You look terrible, she said without looking up. I've been busy. I handed her the printed emails. Found these over the weekend. Helena read in silence for 10 minutes. When she finished, she leaned back in her chair and smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. Well, this changes everything. How so? Your wife and her friend have been conspiring to defraud the court, manufacturing evidence of abuse, coordinating with opposing counsel, planning perjury. This isn't just adultery anymore, Cole. This is criminal conspiracy. What can we do with it? Destroy them, completely and legally. Helena stood and walked to her window. But we need to be smart about it. If we show our hand too early, they'll claim the emails were fabricated or taken out of context. What do you suggest? We let them dig their own graves a little deeper. Let Mira file her petition with all the false allegations. Let Damon submit his fraudulent evidence. Let Lex continue her harassment campaign. Then we bury them all at once. How long will that take? 2 weeks, maybe 3. Can you handle being the villain that long? I thought about Danny Torres calling my wife a whore in the boxing gym, about Jim Sloan's uncomfortable questions, about coming home every night to a house where my own wife was plotting against me. I can handle it. Good, because when we're done, they won't just lose the divorce case, they'll lose everything else too. That afternoon, I went back to work and pretended everything was normal. I debugged code, attended meetings, and ignored the sideways glances from co-workers who'd heard rumors. At 5 o'clock, I drove home to find Mira packing suitcases. Going somewhere? I asked. Staying with Lex for a few days. I don't feel safe here anymore. Safe from what? From you, Cole. You've been acting erratic, aggressive. I think you need help. I sat down on our bed and watched her pack. Professional help? Maybe. Anger management, at least. That scene at the restaurant was embarrassing. For who? For everyone involved. Damon is a professional. He doesn't deserve to be humiliated in public. Neither do I. Mira stopped packing and looked at me. For a moment, I saw something like guilt in her eyes. Then it was gone. This isn't working, Cole. Our marriage. It hasn't been working for years. So you decided to fix it by sleeping with your lawyer? I decided to fix it by getting professional help. What happened with Damon? That wasn't planned. The lie came so easily. She'd had 3 months of practice. When will you be back? I don't know. Maybe never. She finished packing and carried her suitcases to the front door. I didn't help her. I sat on our bed and listened to her car pull out of the driveway. Then I called Helena. She's gone, I said when she answered. Good. Now the real work begins. The real work turned out to be waiting. Mira filed for divorce 2 days later. The petition was everything Helena had predicted. Allegations of emotional abuse, controlling behavior, and threats of violence. According to the document, I had isolated her from friends, monitored her communications, and created an atmosphere of fear in our home. None of it was true, but it painted a convincing picture of an unstable husband and a terrified wife. Damon had done his job well. This is actually perfect, Helena said when we reviewed the filing. They've committed to a narrative that we can disprove with documentation, bank records, phone logs, witness statements. They've made claims they can't support. What about custody? She's asking for primary custody with supervised visitation for you. Claims you're a danger to Sophie. That hurt more than the financial allegations. Sophie was 8 years old and the best thing in my life. The idea that Mira would use her as a weapon made me want to break something. Can she do that? She can ask. But family court judges see false abuse allegations all the time. When we prove she's lying, she'll be lucky to get joint custody. The harassment campaign continued. Someone called my boss again, claiming I'd threatened a coworker. Someone reported my car as being driven erratically through downtown. Someone called the police about loud music from my house at 2 a.m. All anonymous tips, all lies. All designed to create a pattern of instability and aggression. I documented everything. A week after Mira moved out, I was leaving the gym when I spotted Lex's car in the parking lot. She was sitting behind the wheel, talking on her phone and watching the entrance. Surveillance. I walked over and tapped on her window. She jumped and nearly dropped her phone. "Cole, you scared me." "What are you doing here, Lex?" I was meeting someone for coffee. There's a Starbucks around the corner." "No, there isn't. Closest Starbucks is 6 blocks away." Her face flushed. I must have gotten confused. Must have. Who were you talking to? My sister. Family stuff. Another lie. Lex's sister lived in California and they barely spoke. "How's Mira doing?" "She's scared, Cole. Really scared. She thinks you might do something violent." "Like what?" "I don't know. But she's been having nightmares. She wakes up screaming your name." I leaned down to her window level. "Lex, why do you hate me?" "I don't hate you. I'm just trying to protect my friend." "From what?" "I've never laid a hand on her. Never threatened her. Never done anything but work hard and try to be a good husband." Maybe that's the problem. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Her eyes went wide as she realized what she'd said. "What does that mean?" "Nothing. I should go." She started her car and backed out quickly, nearly hitting a parked motorcycle. I watched her drive away and wondered what I'd ever done to make Lex Firth want to destroy my life. That night I got my answer. I was going through old photos on my computer, looking for evidence of our happy marriage to counter Mira's abuse allegations. In a folder from 3 years ago, I found pictures from David and Lex's housewarming party. There was Lex, smiling and laughing with guests. There was David, grilling burgers in the backyard. There was Mira, beautiful in a blue sundress. And there, in the background of one photo, was something I'd forgotten. Lex's home office. The door was open and I could see inside. On her desk was a stack of papers with a company letterhead I recognized. Meridian Tech Solutions. My company. I zoomed in on the image. The papers were job applications. Lex had been applying for a position at my company 3 years ago. I called Helena. "I need you to run a background check on Alexis Firth. Employment history, credit report, everything you can find legally." "What am I looking for?" "Anything that connects her to me or my company." Helena called back the next morning with answers I hadn't expected. Lex applied for a senior marketing position at Meridian Tech 3 years ago. She made it to the final round of interviews, but wasn't selected. "Who got the job?" "Someone named Jennifer Walsh. But here's the interesting part. Lex filed a complaint with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, claiming she was discriminated against." "On what grounds?" "She claimed the hiring manager was biased against her because of negative information provided by an employee reference." "Who was the reference?" "You, Cole. You were listed as a personal reference on her application." The pieces fell into place. 3 years ago, Lex had asked me to be a reference for a job application. I'd agreed, thinking it was a formality. When the hiring manager called, I'd been honest about Lex's qualifications and character. Too honest, apparently. What did I say about her? "According to the EEOC filing, you told the hiring manager that Lex could be manipulative and had a tendency to create drama in social situations. You also said she might not be a good fit for a collaborative work environment." I remembered the conversation now. The hiring manager had asked specific questions about Lex's personality and work style. I'd given truthful answers based on years of observation. Lex hadn't gotten the job. The position had gone to someone with better qualifications and references, but Lex had blamed me for her failure. Helena, how long has she been planning this? Hard to say, but the timeline suggests she's been working on Mira for at least 2 years, maybe longer. 2 years of subtle manipulation, 2 years of encouraging dissatisfaction, 2 years of positioning herself as the supportive friend who understood how difficult marriage could be. All because I'd told the truth about her character during a reference check. What's our next move? We spring the trap. It's time to let them know we have the evidence. How? Leave that to me. Helena's plan was elegant in its simplicity. On Friday afternoon, she called Damon's office and requested a settlement conference. Standard procedure in divorce cases, designed to avoid the expense and uncertainty of trial. Monday, 2 o'clock, she told me. Conference room at the courthouse. You, me, Mira, Damon, and a mediator. What about Lex? She won't be there officially, but I guarantee she'll know everything that happens within an hour. Monday morning, I put on my best suit and drove downtown. The courthouse was the imposing granite building that had been intimidating people for over a century. The settlement conference room was small and sterile, with a long table and uncomfortable chairs. Mira was already there when I arrived, sitting next to Damon and looking nervous. She'd lost weight in the past 2 weeks and had dark circles under her eyes. Damon looked confident in an expensive suit that probably cost more than I made in a month. The mediator was a retired family court judge named Patricia Morrison. She had gray hair, sharp eyes, and a reputation for cutting through nonsense quickly. Let's begin, Judge Morrison said. Mr. Vellick, please outline your client's position. Damon opened a leather portfolio and began reading from his notes. Your Honor, Mrs. Archer is seeking dissolution of marriage based on irreconcilable differences, with primary custody of the minor child and an equitable distribution of marital assets. He continued for 10 minutes, painting me as an controlling, emotionally abusive husband who had created an atmosphere of fear in our home. He cited specific examples, monitoring Mira's phone calls, questioning her whereabouts, displaying anger and jealousy. All lies, but presented professionally. When he finished, Judge Morrison turned to Helena. Ms. Vero? Helena smiled and opened her own portfolio. Your Honor, we have a somewhat different perspective on this case. She handed copies of a document to everyone at the table. These are excerpts from email communications between Mrs. Archer and a third party, obtained legally from Mrs. Archer's personal email account. I watched Mira's face as she read, the color drained from her cheeks. As you can see, Helena continued, Mrs. Archer has been coordinating with an outside party to manufacture evidence of abuse and to manipulate the legal proceedings. Damon was reading frantically, his confidence evaporating. Your Honor, these documents are taken out of context. Mr. Vellick, please let me finish. Helena's voice was ice cold. We also have evidence that you have been engaged in an intimate relationship with your client throughout the representation period, in direct violation of professional ethics rules. She handed out another set of documents. Hotel receipts, restaurant charges, text messages. Furthermore, we have evidence that Mrs. Archer and her co-conspirator have engaged in a campaign of harassment against my client, including false reports to his employer and law enforcement. Judge Morrison was reading carefully, her expression growing more serious with each page. Mr. Vellick, she said finally, are you aware that engaging in intimate relationships with clients during active representation is grounds for disbarment? Damon's face had gone pale. Your Honor, I can explain. I don't think you can. Ms. Vero, what is your client seeking? Complete dismissal of all allegations against Mr. Archer, joint custody with equal parenting time, and a referral to the State Bar and District Attorney's Office for investigation of fraud and conspiracy charges. The room was silent, except for the sound of Mira crying softly. Mrs. Archer, Judge Morrison said, do you understand the seriousness of these allegations? Mira nodded, unable to speak. Mr. Vellick, I'm ordering you to withdraw from this case immediately. I'm also reporting this matter to the State Bar for investigation. Damon gathered his papers with shaking hands. Your Honor, if I could have a moment to consult with my client. You no longer have a client, Mr. Vellick. Mrs. Archer will need new representation. After Damon left, Judge Morrison addressed Mira directly. Mrs. Archer, you have two choices. You can continue with this divorce using new counsel, in which case these fraud allegations will be fully investigated. Or you can work out an amicable settlement with your husband and hope he doesn't pursue criminal charges. Mira looked at me for the first time since the conference began. Cole, I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. How far did you mean for it to go? I don't know. Lex said, she said you deserved it. That you'd ruined her life and it was time for payback. So this was never about our marriage? At first it was. I was unhappy, and Lex was so understanding. She listened to me complain and offered to help. She knew Damon from her work and thought he could help me get a fair settlement. When did it become about revenge? I don't know exactly. Somewhere along the way, it stopped being about what I wanted and started being about what Lex wanted. She had plans for everything, what to say, how to act, what evidence to present. Judge Morrison interrupted. Mrs. Archer, I strongly suggest you obtain independent legal counsel immediately. This conference is adjourned. Outside the courthouse, Mira caught up with me as I was walking to my car. Cole, wait. I turned around. What now, Mira? I want to make this right. I'll withdraw the divorce petition. We can go to counseling. We can fix this. Fix what? Our marriage was just a prop in Lex's revenge fantasy. You were ready to take our daughter away from me based on lies. I was scared, confused. Lex made it sound like you were dangerous. I was never dangerous to you. I loved you. I thought you loved me. Mira started crying again. I did love you. I still do. No, you don't. You love the idea of not being responsible for your choices. You love having someone else to blame for your unhappiness. I got in my car and drove away, leaving her standing on the courthouse steps. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Lex Firth had orchestrated the destruction of my marriage, my reputation, and nearly my relationship with my daughter. She'd done it all because I'd told the truth about her character 3 years ago. It was time for some truth-telling of my own. The Riverside Neighborhood Block Party was an annual tradition that brought together 300 residents for food, music, and gossip. This year, it was being held in Meridian Park, 6 blocks from my house. Perfect. I spent Tuesday and Wednesday preparing. Not weapons or elaborate schemes, just information. Phone numbers, email addresses, social media contacts. A comprehensive list of everyone who knew Mira, Lex, and Damon. Thursday morning, I created a simple website. Nothing fancy, just a clean layout with a timeline of events and supporting documentation. Email screenshots, hotel receipts, court filings, everything organized chronologically. I called it The Truth About Lex Firth. Friday afternoon, I sent the link to 200 people, co-workers, neighbors, friends, family members, anyone who had been touched by Lex's lies and manipulation. The response was immediate. My phone started ringing at 6 p.m. and didn't stop until midnight. Co-workers who had heard rumors about my instability, neighbors who had received anonymous complaints about my behavior, friends who had been told I was abusive and dangerous. All of them had been contacted by Lex or someone working with her. Saturday morning brought more calls. David Firth was first. Cole, what have you done? I told the truth. Same thing that got me in trouble 3 years ago. Lex is having a breakdown. She's been crying all night. People are calling her work, her family, everyone she knows. Good. Maybe now she knows how it feels. This has to stop. No, David, this has to finish. I hung up and drove to the park. The block party was already in full swing when I arrived. Food trucks lined the main path, kids ran around the playground, adults clustered in conversation groups. I could feel eyes following me as I walked through the crowd. Big Mike was working the barbecue booth with some of the guys from the gym. He waved me over. "Hell of a website you put together," he said, flipping burgers. "Real eye-opening stuff. People deserve to know the truth." "Damn right they do. That woman tried to destroy you for no good reason." I bought a burger and walked toward the main pavilion where the afternoon's activities were scheduled. A small stage had been set up for local musicians and community announcements. At 3 o'clock, I saw them arrive. Mira, Lex, and David walked into the park together. Mira looked embarrassed, David looked angry, and Lex looked terrified. They found a spot near the back of the crowd and tried to blend in. It didn't work. People were staring and whispering. A few pointed openly. At 3:30, the park coordinator took the stage for community announcements. Lost pets, upcoming events, volunteer opportunities. When she finished, she asked if anyone else had announcements to make. I walked to the stage. "I'd like to say a few words." The coordinator looked uncertain but handed me the microphone. The crowd quieted as I stepped up to speak. "For those who don't know me, I'm Cole Archer. I live on Maple Street. Some of you have heard stories about me recently, about my marriage, my behavior, my character." I could see Lex trying to push through the crowd toward the exit, but there were too many people. 2 weeks ago, I discovered that my wife was having an affair with her divorce attorney. That was painful but not surprising. Marriages end, people cheat, it happens. Murmurs from the crowd. This wasn't what they'd expected from a community announcement. What surprised me was learning that the affair was orchestrated by someone I considered a friend, someone who spent 2 years manipulating my wife, encouraging her dissatisfaction, and planning the destruction of my marriage. I looked directly at Lex. She had stopped trying to leave and was staring at me with pure hatred. Lex Firth decided to destroy my life because I gave her an honest reference check 3 years ago. She didn't get a job she wanted, and she blamed me for her failure. The crowd was completely silent now. Even the children had stopped playing. For 2 years, she worked on my wife. Subtle suggestions about how unhappy she seemed, helpful advice about protecting her assets, introductions to lawyers who specialized in difficult divorces. I pulled out my phone and read from Lex's own emails. "He's too trusting, too stupid." That's what she wrote about me. "We need him to look unstable, controlling, maybe violent." Gasps from the crowd. Someone started recording with their phone. She called my boss with false reports about my behavior. She called the police with noise complaints when I wasn't even home. She tried to turn my own daughter against me with lies about domestic abuse. Lex finally found her voice. "You're lying! You're crazy!" "Am I? Then explain the emails. Explain the coordination with Damon Vellick. Explain why you've been surveilling me for weeks." The crowd turned to stare at Lex. She looked around desperately for support, but found only accusing faces. "All because I told the truth about your character 3 years ago. All because I said you were manipulative and created drama." I handed the microphone back to the coordinator. Turns out I was right. The crowd erupted in conversation as I walked off the stage. Some people applauded. Others looked shocked. A few approached Lex with questions she couldn't answer. I was halfway to my car when Damon Vellick stepped out from behind a food truck. "You think you're pretty clever, don't you?" he said. "Clever enough. You've destroyed my career, my marriage, my reputation. You did that yourself when you decided to sleep with your client." Damon's face was flushed with anger and alcohol. "You have no idea what you've started. I know exactly what I've started. I've started telling the truth." He took a step toward me. "Maybe it's time someone taught you to keep your mouth shut." "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise." Damon swung at me with a wild right hand that telegraphed from downtown. I slipped it easily and caught him with a short left hook to the ribs. He doubled over, gasping. "Stay down, Damon. "You're embarrassed enough already." But he came up swinging again, this time with a bottle he'd grabbed from a nearby trash can. I stepped inside his swing and drove an uppercut into his chin. He went down hard and stayed down. The crowd had followed us from the pavilion and now formed a circle around the scene. Someone called for an ambulance. Someone else called the police. Big Mike pushed through the crowd and knelt beside Damon, who was conscious but dazed. "Self-defense," he announced to anyone who would listen. I saw the whole thing. Lawyer threw the first punch and came at him with a bottle. 3 other gym members backed up his story. By the time the police arrived, there were a dozen witnesses ready to testify that Damon had initiated the violence. The paramedics checked Damon for serious injuries and found none. Bruised ribs, split lip, wounded pride. He declined to press charges when the police explained that he would likely be arrested for assault if he did. As the crowd dispersed, I found myself face to face with Mira. "Are you satisfied now?" she asked. "Are you? You've humiliated me in front of everyone we know. You humiliated yourself. I just provided documentation. What happens now? Now you get a new lawyer and we work out custody arrangements. No more games, no more lies, no more manipulation. What about us? There is no us, Mira. There never was. There was just you and me and Lex's revenge fantasy." I walked away from the park, leaving behind the wreckage of my marriage and the woman who had helped destroy it. But as I reached my car, I realized something important. For the first time in months, I felt free. Free from lies, free from manipulation, free from people who pretended to care while plotting my destruction. Lex Firth had tried to destroy me because I'd told the truth about her character. In the end, the truth had destroyed her instead. I drove home through the quiet streets of my neighborhood, past houses where people were probably discussing the afternoon's events. Some would sympathize with me, others would think I'd gone too far. I didn't care anymore. I'd learned something valuable about the difference between being nice and being good. Being nice meant keeping quiet when people asked uncomfortable questions. Being good meant telling the truth, even when it cost you something. 3 years ago, I'd told the truth about Lex Firth, and it had cost me my marriage. Today, I'd told the truth about Lex Firth, and it had set me free. The anniversary tab was